Hey everybody, thank you so much for joining me today. Today's treat is caramel Swiss rolls. The first thing you're going to want to do is get your oven set to 375 degrees and let it start warming up while you get the rest of your butter and ingredients together. So for this recipe, eagle-eyed watchers will recognize it. It's basically my chocolate cake recipe. You're going to need 1 3/4 cup of flour, and you're going to need 2 cups of sugar, and to that you're going to add 3/4 cup of cocoa powder. I recommend using a high quality, high fat cocoa powder because it has the best flavor. The one that I use is actually made with Belgian chocolate because that just makes it extra good. To the rest of your dry ingredients, you're going to add a teaspoon of salt, one and a half teaspoons or a half tablespoon of baking soda, and the same amount, 1 1/2 teaspoons or a half tablespoon of baking powder. Then you're going to want to put that on your mixer and get it going for a little while just to mix everything together a little bit. Put it on low, otherwise you're end up with cocoa and other powder flying up in the air. For our wet ingredients, we're going to need 2 eggs. And if you want to know how to crack eggs one-handed, go ahead and check out this video here in the upper right-hand corner. You also need 1 cup of buttermilk. I always use whole fatter buttermilk and milk products. Don't want to skimp on these things. It makes a difference in how well it tastes. In addition, you're going to need 1/2 cup of a low flavored oil. I usually use canola oil. Next, you want to add your wet ingredients to the dry ingredients. You need to add the buttermilk and canola oil, and the eggs, and lastly you need to add 1 tablespoon of pure vanilla extract. And then beat it for 2 minutes at medium speed. While that's mixing, I go ahead and heat up 1 cup of water till it's at the boiling point. This batter is actually a very liquidy batter, and so you wouldn't think that it would rise up into wonderful. So once it's done mixing for those 2 minutes, you're going to go ahead and clean off your paddle. And then I usually just do the rest by hand. I used to actually add the water and use it with the mixer, but it splashed everywhere and was a huge mess. So I finally got smart and just did it old school by hand. Alright, so once you have your batter mixed up, what you need is just a regular sized sheet pan that you bake your cookies on. And I line it with parchment paper, and even though I do that, I still spray it with vegetable spray. I discovered the hard way that if you don't do that, even with using the parchment paper, it still sticks for some reason. So I just go ahead and spray that parchment paper down. Now the recipe needs 5.5 cups of batter in order to make the sheet cake for the Swiss rolls. So what I do is I go ahead and measure out 2 cups of the batter to save to use for cupcakes and pour the rest onto the pan. I measured out when I first made this recipe, and it makes approximately 7.5 cups of batter. So 7.5 minus 2 equals the 5.5 cups that you need for your Swiss roll. And here I'm just pushing the batter into all of the corners to make sure that it all ends up being in there fairly evenly. And yes, I do use every last drop. So with the additional batter, I always make it into cupcakes. And it's not anything I measure specifically, it's just worked out that way. I just fill it till it's about 3/4 full in the cup. And again, because I don't like to waste, I try and scrape out every last little drop of that batter to go ahead and bake up. Waste not, want not. And once you're done, you're going to go ahead and put it into the oven after it's finished heating up. And at that point, you just need to put your timer on for about 20 minutes. And look at that, amazingly, 20 minutes has passed already. You go ahead and pull out your sheet pan and the rest of your cupcakes. Then you're going to want to let them cool until you're ready for your next step. And so for this next step, I made some caramel sauce, and I'm going to be making a video on that at a future time. So I was dishing it out into a heatable container to heat back up so it'd be easier to mix into the buttercream. And I also used some leftover vanilla Italian buttercream for this recipe. The great thing about this recipe is you can put any flavored buttercream you want in the middle. I've done it with plain vanilla, the caramel like we're doing today. Strawberry buttercream is also fantastic. Peanut butter would be really, really good. Chocolate and peanut butter, I mean, those are a classic. The vanilla Italian buttercream, if you want to know how to make that, there's a link up here in the right hand corner. And so after heating up the caramel sauce just long enough so that it was nice and runny again, you don't want it too hot or it'll melt the buttercream, you just want to mix them together. The wonderful thing about the Italian buttercream is it freezes really well. So when you first pull it out of the freezer, it's going to be flat, but if you go ahead and stir it up and give it a good mix, it comes back to life and it has that nice creamy texture again. Alright, so once you have your caramel mixed into the buttercream, you want to get your cake ready to go. Alright, so then you just want to take some of your buttercream and slap it on there. Just put on a good thick layer of the buttercream, and you want to cover it evenly and smoothly across the entire surface of the cake. Once you have the buttercream on there good and evenly, you're going to want to go ahead and face it towards you with the smaller end of the rectangle facing you. And then what I do, as you can see, is I just kind of run my finger lightly under the very end of that parchment paper and fold it over and use the parchment paper to fold it. For some reason this one was choosing to be a little more fidgety, so it kept sticking on me a little bit, so it didn't come out quite as nice as they usually do, but it still tasted delicious. And trust me, no one complained. So once I have that final roll done, I'll take a little time to sort of squish it into that better cylindrical shape using the parchment paper that is still on there. And then once that's done, you can go ahead and completely lift it off the parchment paper or leave that last little bit on there like I tend to do. In order to make a cleaner slice, what you're going to want to do is slice off those very ends. However, that is some delicious cake going on right there, and you don't want to throw that away. So I will put that on a plate and give it to my husband, and poor guy. It's hard to believe he's still married to me. Another thing that I learned the hard way is that you want to make sure to clean off your knife after each slice. If you choose to slice up your Swiss roll and not serve it as an entire roll, but serve it up as slices, you're going to want to go ahead and clean that knife in between the individual slices, because that buttercream gets on there and you end up with a swirled mess instead of a beautiful swirl. Each Swiss roll that I make makes approximately 9 slices, but that's just a subjective thing. You can cut them as thick or as thin as you want and make it into more slices or fewer slices for that matter. And there you have it, the caramel Swiss roll. And yes, those little packets can be slippery. Once you are done, you have this delicious fluffy cake and amazing thick buttercream that is just creamy and delicious. I hope you make this and enjoy. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel, and I look forward to seeing you soon.